Hello everybody, Jim here. Welcome back to Mad Panic Gaming. And today I hope you're all some big Punisher fans because today I'm going to be ranking all of the standalone Punisher games from worst to best. I've been a big Punisher fan ever since I was a kid. The allure of a superhero, quote unquote, that goes around killing bad guys with like machine guns and grenades and rocket launchers and stuff, and has a big cool skull on his chest. That's attractive to any kid, right? So yeah, when I was like 10 years old, huge Punisher fan, Punisher comics and t-shirts, and I'd see all the movies. I've seen them all. I've actually enjoyed all of them. Even the Dolph Lundgren movie from like 1989 was cool. Most recently though, Punisher Warzone was a great movie, and then obviously the Punisher series with Steve Bernthal, really just like an excellent show. He's a great Punisher as well. So I'm a big fan of the character, and recently, just kind of coincidentally, for a bunch of different series I do on the channel, I've been playing a bunch of Punisher games. So I did a video on excessively violent games. I've done videos on arcade beat-em-ups, on 16-bit superhero games, and NES games I'd played for the first time, and in each of those videos the Punisher somehow found his way in there. So I said, what the hell, I've been playing all these Punisher games, might as well play the last handful of them and then do a ranking video, which is new for this channel. I've never done a ranking video before, so this should be fun. Down in the comments you can let me know what's your favorite Punisher game. I think most people favor the arcade game, but we're gonna see. So I'm gonna rank all of these from the worst to the best, and we're going to get started with the absolute worst, and that's this game right here. Okay, starting off with the absolute worst game based on the Punisher, and just a horrible game in general, really. That is the Punisher on the Amiga. And this is a game that falls into the category of games I didn't know existed until I was already planning to make a video. Just because in the process of planning this video, I did a quick bit of research, wanted to make sure I had all of the games, that I knew what they all were, and then found out that there was this game, so I had to play it. And so I got an Amiga emulator and loaded up the Punisher, and it's just abysmal. It's very bad. Essentially, it's a shooting gallery type game. So you enter an area, a bunch of bad guys come onto the screen, and you have two guns at all times, and you can shoot them, one button for one gun, one button for another, and you can also lob grenades. So after a little bit of time passes, you can move on to a different area, and sometimes you have a choice if you want to go forward or go to the left or right. And as you kill all the enemies, someone just respawns where they just were, and the game tallies up all of your kills. And the worst part of this game is that the gameplay is just so incredibly choppy. It's almost impossible to play this game. I turned on all of the cheats, as a matter of fact, to give myself unlimited ammo and unlimited health, because in this game, if obviously if you lose all of your health, then you fail the mission. But you can also fail the mission if you either kill an innocent, or even just allow an innocent to be killed by the bad guys. If you arrive to a screen and one of them has a hostage, if you don't take the bad guy out quickly enough, they'll just kill the hostage and you fail the mission. But also when you go to shoot the bad guy, it's so imprecise and so choppy that you'll probably just shoot their hostage anyway, and again you fail. And then I found out that if you do make it to the end of the first mission, you beat the boss, which is just a big truck. Even if you complete the mission, if you didn't kill enough criminals, you'll fail the mission and have to start over anyway. So I was just at my wit's end with this game. It's so bad. I didn't even really care. Like I turned on all the cheats because I wanted to see like a little further into the game because I'm capturing footage. Might as well see what all this game has to offer. I couldn't even bother to care when I got to the end of the first stage, and it sent me back anyway, even though I made it through. I said to hell with this game. I mean, you do have some other guns and things to choose from, but I honestly didn't give a damn. This game plays like crap, and then there's no music at all during gameplay. There's music during the title screen, and there's music when you get a game over. And the game over music is actually pretty good, but there's no music during gameplay. The gameplay itself is extremely choppy and just unplayable mess. It's garbage. So yeah, that's enough. I think I made my point pretty clear. The Punisher on the Amiga is the absolute worst Punisher game and just an all-around terrible game. So yeah, definitely pass on this one. And next up, we have the Punisher for MS-DOS. And this is another game that there are almost no redeeming qualities to it at all. I would say just maybe like in some of the cutscenes, the visuals are okay. But during gameplay, the visuals suck, and the sound design also sucks. This is another game where there's no music at all during gameplay, just the sound effects, which don't sound that great anyway. And the gameplay is also not fun at all. The only thing that makes this better than the Amiga game, though, is that you can actually play this game. Like, in theory, it should be fine. It's a top-down, sort of a run and gun. It's just, like, not very fun to play. Kind of clunky. But you go mission by mission. So in each mission, there's a building in the city that you're going to need to go into and kill a certain number of bad guys or kill a specific bad guy. Obviously, don't kill any cops or innocent civilians. And that's basically it. It's just not very fun. Like, on paper, it should be okay. Like, a top-down, run-and-gun Punisher game could be cool, but this one, the execution is just all wrong. So it's not a fun game to play. It can be a little bit confusing at times as well. And then there are also sections where you drive the battle van, and these are just the most god-awful, like, choppy sections of any game ever. They're as choppy as the Amiga game. So, yeah, really not good. So, yeah, the MS-DOS game, it's a little bit better than the Amiga game just because it's playable, where that one really isn't. But aside from that, there are really no redeeming qualities to this game. The gameplay itself is not fun. The graphics are not particularly good, and the sound design also sucks. So it's just a rung above the Amiga game. Again, this is one I would not recommend playing unless you're someone like me. You're just like playing it for YouTube content. Then in that case, you can get away with it. But for anyone that's just looking for a fun game, definitely pass on the Punisher on MS-DOS. Next up, I have the Punisher, the Ultimate Payback on the Game Boy. And this game is kind of like the NES game, except you don't actually see the Punisher on screen, the physical character. Instead, it's just a rail shooter. You've got a reticle on screen, and it scrolls to the right. And as bad guys pop up, you shoot them. So again, it's a shooting gallery type of game. Yeah, this little Game Boy game plays way better than that Amiga game did. It's not great, mind you. It's still a bit choppy, and it's certainly tough. In the NES game, at least like you have to get hit by bullets to take damage. Here, though, if the bad guys just get some shots off, you can get hit. It's kind of like a light gun game where if the bad guys take some shots at you, you'll just get hit. So you really have to play it a couple of times. Like the first stage, the first time I played through it, I died pretty quickly. But then once I figured out like where some of the enemies were going to spawn from, it got a little easier. So you shoot the bad guys. You have to shoot health power-ups to refill your health. You can shoot gun and ammo power-ups to get more ammo. And you also have some grenades. And that's really about it. It scrolls to the right. You shoot all the bad guys. If there's a civilian, obviously don't shoot the civilian. And then you get to a boss, shoot the boss, and that's it. There's 5 or 6 stages in this game. When recording this footage, I got through like the first couple of stages. What's funny though is they include Spider-Man in here. Spider-Man comes in to help you. So in the first stage, when you're in the shopping mall, he'll swing in to save civilians. And then after that, he's like, all right, well, it looks like you got everything secure. I'll take off. See you later. And then you're just like flying solo after that. So they threw him in for like one stage, I guess, so they could put him on the box art. Yeah, but there you go. It's the Punisher, the ultimate payback on the Game Boy. Not a great game, mind you, but like visually, you know, for a Game Boy game, it's fine. The music is fine, and the gameplay is just a generic reticle shooter. So it's not terrible. It's definitely better than the Amiga game, but overall, kind of a mediocre game. But yeah, it's only the second worst Punisher game, for what that's worth. So yeah, if you like reticle shooter and you're playing games on the go, or if you're just playing on an emulator like I am, you might get some enjoyment out of this one. Next up, The Punisher on the NES, and this is a game that I only played for the first time like a few months ago. I'd seen it on like an old AVGN episode like years ago. I thought it looked pretty cool. I will say that graphically, this is not a bad looking NES game at all. It actually looks pretty good. It does a good like job of making kind of like dark, moody looking graphics, which fits with the Punisher, kind of like the scenario of you're going out into the dingiest parts of New York to kill bad guys and stuff. Kind of a tough game though, mostly since like you're kind of an easy target. You're just moving to the left and right, and then when you're actually firing, you stop, you stay in place as you're firing. And lots of bad guys pop up on screen and they shoot at you, so you just take a lot of damage. At the very least though, like they have to actually hit you. It's not like the Game Boy game where they just fire at the screen and you take damage. So here you at least do have the chance to like dodge bullets and things. But yeah, you just shoot all the bad guys that appear on screen, and then you shoot power-ups, like there are health power-ups and there are ammo power-ups, there are grenades, and then you can get an even more powerful gun that has a faster rate of fire. And so each stage, because you can choose between 3, and there are 3 different levels, and they're made up of a few different sections. So there's stage 1, and there's stage 2, and then you get to a boss fight. And the boss fights it's like Punch-Out. You're fist fighting Jigsaw and whoever else. So at least in that regard, they shake things up a little bit. Probably the worst aspect of this game, though, is the sound design, because there's no music at all during gameplay. Again, kind of like the Amiga game. Like, for whatever reason, there's just like music during gameplay. Hell no. It'll drown out these awesome sound effects or whatever. Which, to be fair, like the sound effects, the gun firing and everything is fine. But yeah, some music during gameplay would have been okay. I forget who developed this game. I know it's published by LJN, and you know, that's like the Rainbow of Death. as they say. But this is one of the games they published that actually isn't like that bad. It's pretty cool. Like stuff like this and like Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, they're not bad games. LGN wasn't all bad. But yeah, so the Punisher on the NES, like, it's not great. It's kind of difficult, and the sound design, you know, isn't really any good. But graphically, it's okay, and gameplay-wise, it's you know, pretty solid. There's nothing really all that wrong with it. It's just a difficult game. So it's pretty good. Better than by like a long shot the Amiga game, and better than the Game Boy game too. But not as good as all the stuff that would come after it. But for the NES, I guess this was the best they could do. The Punisher, NES. Not a bad game at all, really.
Something's definitely going down. Thanks, Budansky. Guess I owe you one. Bushwhacker. Last thing I need's a damn sermon right now. No, that fucker is the last thing I need.
Next up is a game that I honestly had forgotten existed for a while there, and had to go back. I can't actually play this game anymore, so I had to go and find some footage just on YouTube to use really quickly. So to the original creator of this footage, thank you very much. The Punisher, No Mercy, was a PlayStation Network game, so it was only available digitally, and now it's not there anymore. You cannot purchase this game. The only way to be able to play this game is if you have a PS3 that already had a digital version of this game on it. So this game is one of those good arguments for releasing things physically. It's essentially like an arena shooter, and it's kind of a generic one, but the real draw is that you can play as like Punisher characters. So you got the Punisher himself, obviously, but you have some of his other like ancillary characters. So there's Silver Sable. I think there's Jigsaw. Microchip is in there, even though Microchip is not an actual fighter. He just helps Frank, and I think like Bushwhacker or some others are in there. So yeah, you just get your characters, you run around, and you shoot each other, and it's like a team-based first-person shooter game. There was a story mode. It wasn't very robust. It was just like a handful of stages. The real point of this game was to just have like an arena shooter, play online, and play with a bunch of Punisher characters. Graphics were pretty good for their day. Sound design was pretty good too. There's even some like motion comics cutscenes and stuff for like the single player mode and everything. So overall, this game was pretty cool. It wasn't like a great first-person shooter, but it was a competent one at least. It was a well-made enough game for what was just like a digital-only kind of like budget title. So in that regard, it's fine. It's just you can't play it anymore. So yeah, it's better than the games that came before it. Objectively, it is, but it's kind of doesn't really matter because at least you can still like play the NES game and the Game Boy game and stuff. You can't really play this anymore unless you're lucky, like this particular gentleman here, and you just still have it on your PS3. Anyway, the Punisher, No Mercy, rest in peace.
Talk.
Your Euro bitch done left, Frank. You fuck her yet? Cause she done fucked you, boy. Tell you one thing, cause we pals, that quill-faced motherfucker paid good for taking.
Hell of a time for that dead arm to spasm, Burbank.
Next up, the Punisher on the Sega Genesis. And now we get to the point of the video where the games are just good. Like there's no real anything to complain about. They're just solid games. This game is a really fun 16-bit two-player beat 'em up. You can play, one player is Frank Castle, the Punisher. The other one can be Nick Fury. And if you're playing single player, you can play as Nick Fury. You just have to go into the options menu and switch over if you want to play as Nick, which is odd. I don't know why you couldn't just have like a character select screen like every other beat 'em up, but there you go. They decided to go that way. Not developed by Capcom, published by them, but the development was handled by someone. I think Sculptured Software or someone. Yeah, they did a good job. It's based on the arcade game, obviously, and it does a pretty good job of replicating the arcade. So it's a solid beat 'em up, and you got a bunch of weapons, and you get guns, so you get handguns and machine guns and flamethrowers. You've got grenades. There's all kinds of boss battles against the likes of Bushwhacker and the Kingpin, all that good stuff. So yeah, this one, you don't really have to say too much about it. Just by looking at the gameplay footage, you can see it's a fun, well-made beat 'em up with decent graphics and sound, and a decent level of challenge as well. Again, a solid port of an arcade classic, and I can't sing its praises enough. If you haven't played it before, I highly recommend you do, because it kicks ass. The Punisher, Sega Genesis. Awesome game. Next up, the Punisher arcade game, which, yeah, pretty much everything I just said about the Genesis game, you can apply it to the arcade game. It's just better. So still an awesome two-player beat-em-up. Gameplay is smoother. The graphics are much better. The sound quality is much better. And that's basically it. This is one of my favorite arcade beat-em-ups ever. This was when Capcom was really knocking it out of the park, which is like a ton of beat-em-ups, like every year. Between this and Cadillacs and Dinosaurs and Aliens vs. Predator and the Dungeons and Dragons beat-em-ups, Final Fight, they were just crushing it. So this game is awesome. I'm not even sure if this game is, I think it was on the CPS Dash, which was, it's between the CPS 1 and the CPS 2, because this was released, I think, maybe about a year or like a little less than a year before the CPS 2 hit the market. But it's a great looking game and a great sounding game. A lot of fun. Again, 2 players, and all the bosses and all the guns and all the grenades and machine guns and flamethrowers and bonus stages. Hey, all you can handle, baby. And for the longest time, this was my absolute favorite Punisher game, which, to be fair, there wasn't like a ton of competition out there. But this is just really like a solid game. You can't really complain about anything in terms of graphics, sound, or gameplay. And it's one I highly recommend. If you've never played it before, definitely play it. If you haven't played in a long time, load it up, get MAME, get Final Burn, something like that, and go to town, because this is one of the all-time great arcade beat-em-ups.
Good worker. Kept his nose to the grindstone.
And my pick for the absolute best Punisher game is the Punisher that came out on the PS2, Xbox, and PC. This is a really great, fun, third-person action shooter. Kill the hell out of a ton of bad guys. You can interrogate them and torture them. You can kill them with all kinds of implements of death. You can kill them with meat cleavers, or you can impale them on the horn of a stuffed rhino. You can kill them with power tools and flamethrowers and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then aside from that, it's just a solid third-person shooter. Really fun. Great graphics and sound. The voice work is amazing. Thomas Jane, the movie had just come out prior to this, so Thomas Jane voices Frank Castle in this game. And the game is not based on the movie. It's more based on the comics that were being released at the time, that I think the movie was kind of like loosely based off of. There's actually a scene in the game, or a scenario in the game, where you fight the Russian, and it's pretty much the exact same fight that's in the movie. So it's weird because it is based on the comics that the movie is also based on, but it is not based on the movie, which was based on the comics as well, if that makes any sense. So story-wise, it's pretty cool. Again, you fight some of the Punisher's legendary villains, including Bullseye, which was really cool. Always nice to see characters like that don't pop up in a lot of Marvel games. You get them in here, and that's really awesome. So yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of the entertainment just comes from like how over-the-top, grisly, violent it is. When you're like interrogating bad guys, and then they say something that triggers Frank to have like a flashback or something. That's really cool. So yeah, this game, like, I can't sing its praises highly enough. When it was released on consoles and the PC version as well, all of the more like gory, over-the-top kills were censored. They thought they did like a manhunt kind of thing to it. They thought it was just way too over the top. But then the PC game was obviously patched to restore all of the violence, to take away the censorship, which is my preferred way to play it if you can get like a good like PC emulator working or something. Because if you're gonna play the Xbox or PS2 versions, you're gonna have to tolerate some censorship, and I'm just not with that, man. But yeah, this game is great. It was kind of a toss-up in my head if I should have this as the best or the Punisher arcade game. But ultimately, I went with this one just because I think the arcade game is awesome. It's like really fun. Like I say, it's one of the better arcade beat-em-ups ever made. But at the end of the day, it's still a beat-em-up. It's over in about 45 minutes. Whereas here, this game, you know, it's more to it. It's a bigger, beefier game. It's a lot of fun, and I just think as like a Punisher game, it gets the character right. You just run around killing all the criminals in sight, and that's what the Punisher does. And of course, if you come across innocents, you can't kill any of the innocent people, which again is in keeping with Frank's character. If they did something like the Amiga game, where like if you did accidentally kill an innocent person, the levels started over again. I don't know, that might have been like something to include in like an intelligent way rather than like the clunky, clumsy ass way they did in the Amiga game. But yeah, I guess I said enough. The Punisher on the Gen 6 consoles and PC, this game is absolutely awesome. If you've never played it before and you like a good third-person shooter, and you like, especially if you like gory, over-the-top, violent games, you're probably going to like this one a lot. Some people have compared it to like Max Payne, but like a more violent Max Payne. And it's, I guess that's a decent assessment. But this game is great, and it is my pick for the best game based on the Punisher.
Get out of my house! Haven't you caused me enough pain?
Not yet. Got what I came for. Time to leave.
So there you go, everybody. That's what I think are the rankings of the Punisher games from worst to best. Some of that probably not very surprising. The Amiga game is just absolutely horrendous. But when you get to the top two, there's some contention there. A lot of people, when I made a community post asking people what their favorite Punisher game is, a lot of the responses said the arcade game, which is very understandable. It's an amazing beat 'em up. But then some people also said they liked the Xbox/PC game, which was my personal choice. I enjoyed the hell out of that game. For me, that's like a perfect Punisher game. Like, that's what the Punisher should be all about. Going around, killing criminal scum, and having some like fun, torturous, like Saw type stuff. I mean, honestly, when you're the Punisher, you want to back over a guy's face with a forklift. That's just a given. So yeah, anyway, had a lot of fun putting this video together, played some really fun games, with the exception of the Amiga game. I even, I had fun with the Game Boy game, the NES game as well, the arcade, Genesis. I mean, it's all great stuff. Unfortunately, yeah, I wasn't able to actually play Punisher No Mercy. I want to say I played that game like back in like 2010, and I had like pretty like fond memories of it. It was cool that it was a Punisher game, but it was just kind of like mid-range like arena, like run, shoot 'em up, first-person shooter game. So yeah, had to borrow some footage for that one because it's just not available anymore. We're screwed. So that's kind of like a little bit of a warning for the all-digital gaming landscape we're going into. Some, they might be able to just take your games away from you like that. Anyway, again, down in the comments, what's your ranking for these games? What's the best Punisher game? Have you played all of these? Have you not? And am I a total idiot? Am I an asshole? You can go ahead and put that down in the comments too. All good. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the video, if you actually made it this far and you're still listening to me, give us a like. If you haven't already, give us a sub. I'd certainly appreciate it. And until next time, come back for the next ranking video, whatever the hell it should be. You can let me know that in the comments too, because I never really know what I'm doing on this channel. We're really just winging it here. So yeah, all that stuff real good. I'm rambling. I'm out of my mind today. So take care, everybody. Hope to see you on the next video, and take care until then. Goodbye.